Rest should feel like relief, a pause, a release, a chance to breathe. But for people who have lived in survival mode for a long time, rest feels unsafe, not relaxing, not comforting. Unsafe. They sit down and feel restless. They stop working and feel anxious. They try to rest and feel like something bad is about to happen. This isn't weakness, it's conditioning. Let's start with what survival mode actually is. Survival mode is not stress in short bursts, it's prolonged uncertainty, financial instability, job insecurity, constant pressure, chronic fear of falling behind. When survival mode lasts long enough, the nervous system adapts. Hyperalertness becomes normal. Urgency becomes default. Rest becomes unfamiliar. The body learns one rule: if I stop paying attention, something bad will happen. Now let's talk about why rest feels threatening. In survival mode, rest was dangerous. Rest meant falling behind, missing opportunities, losing control, letting things slip. So the brain linked rest with risk. That link doesn't disappear when circumstances improve. The threat is gone. The association remains. Now let's talk about safety signals. A regulated nervous system recognizes safety through consistency, but survival mode trained the system to recognize safety through vigilance. Being alert felt responsible. Being tired felt productive. Being stressed felt useful. So when rest appears, the body doesn't recognize it as safety. It recognizes it as absence of protection. Now let's talk about internal alarms. When someone in survival mode tries to rest, the body often reacts immediately. Racing thoughts, muscle tension, compulsive checking, sudden worries. These are not random. They're alarms. The nervous system saying, "Why aren't we watching the horizon?" Now let's talk about control again. Survival mode creates the illusion of control through constant effort. You feel like you're managing risk. Rest removes that illusion. And without it, people feel exposed, vulnerable, unprotected. Now let's talk about why people create busy work. When rest feels unsafe, people fill space. They clean, they organize, they plan, they check numbers, they start projects, not because these are necessary, but because motion feels protective. Now let's talk about guilt. Rest guilt is common in survival mode. People feel guilty for slowing down when others are struggling, guilty for resting when there's still uncertainty, guilty for enjoying calm. Guilt adds pressure. Pressure recreates survival mode. Now let's talk about the body again. Survival mode lives in the body. Shallow breathing, tight jaw, clenched shoulders, difficulty sleeping. You can't logic your way out of this. The body must learn safety through experience. Now let's talk about why rest can feel boring or empty. In survival mode, adrenaline provided stimulation. When adrenaline fades, the body feels flat. This flatness is often mistaken for depression or laziness. It's withdrawal. The nervous system is recalibrating. Now let's talk about the urge to return to chaos. Some people sabotage rest intentionally. They take on unnecessary stress. They overcommit. They create financial pressure again. Not because they enjoy suffering, because suffering is familiar. Familiar feels safe. Now let's talk about the slow work of relearning rest. Rest must be reintroduced gradually. Small pockets, predictable routines, low-stakes calm. The body needs repeated evidence that nothing bad happens when you stop. Now let's talk about micro-safety. Safety is not learned through big vacations or dramatic breaks. It's learned through ordinary calm. A quiet evening, a day without urgency, a bill paid without panic. These moments retrain the nervous system. Now let's talk about trust. Trust in rest builds slowly. Each calm experience without consequence builds confidence. Eventually, rest stops triggering alarms. Now let's talk about the emotional shift. At some point, rest stops feeling dangerous. It feels neutral, then normal, then nourishing, but only if you don't force it. Now let's talk about the final misunderstanding. People think rest should feel good immediately. It doesn't. Not when you've been in survival mode. At first, rest feels wrong. That doesn't mean you should stop resting. It means you should continue gently. Now let's close with the most important truth. Rest feels unsafe when you've been in survival mode too long because your body learned to survive under pressure. That learning kept you alive. It protected you. Now it needs updating, and updating takes patience. So if rest feels uncomfortable, don't interpret it as failure. Don't judge yourself. Don't rush back to chaos. Let rest be awkward. Let calm feel unfamiliar. Let safety settle slowly. Because once your nervous system relearns safety, rest stops feeling like a risk and starts feeling like what it always was, a foundation from which real stability, financial, emotional, and personal, can finally grow. There's another reason rest feels unsafe after long survival. Rest removes the excuse. When you're in survival mode, exhaustion explains everything. Why you're irritable, why you're behind, why you haven't figured things out yet. Stress gives context. It gives your pain a reason. When rest arrives, that reason disappears. And without it, people are left with a quiet question they weren't ready to answer. If I'm no longer surviving, what am I actually living for? That question can feel heavier than stress. Now let's talk about emotional exposure. Survival mode numbs. It narrows focus. It suppresses reflection. It postpones feeling. Rest opens the door to emotions that were delayed. Grief for lost time. Anger about unfairness. Sadness about how hard things were. Fear about what comes next. This emotional exposure feels unsafe, so people avoid rest, not because they dislike calm, but because they fear what calm will surface. Now let's talk about time again. Survival mode compresses time. You live in the next task, the next bill, the next deadline. There's no room to look back or ahead. Rest expands time. Suddenly, past and future reappear, and that expansion can feel overwhelming. Now let's talk about vigilance as identity. Many people pride themselves on being alert. I'm on top of things. I'm prepared. I don't let my guard down. That vigilance once protected them. Rest feels like betrayal of that identity. Letting your guard down feels irresponsible. So even when rest is available, people resist it. Now let's talk about financial rest specifically. Financial rest doesn't just mean having money. It means not checking constantly, not bracing for impact, not rehearsing worst-case scenarios. For people who lived in scarcity, this feels reckless. The mind says, stay ready. Don't relax. You'll regret it, even when the numbers say otherwise. Now let's talk about safety becoming boring. Once survival mode ends, life may feel quieter, less intense, less dramatic, less charged. Some people mistake this quiet for emptiness, but it's not emptiness, it's absence of threat. And absence of threat takes time to feel meaningful. Now let's talk about the slow replacement. Survival mode gives meaning through endurance. Rest must be paired with something else. Curiosity, connection, creation, contribution. Not immediately, not forcefully, but eventually. Otherwise, rest feels pointless. Now let's talk about the temptation to earn rest. Many people only allow rest after exhaustion. They wait until they collapse, until they're burned out again, because rest without collapse feels undeserved. This keeps them trapped. Now let's talk about trust again. Trust is built when rest is followed by stability, not collapse, not punishment, not regret, just ordinary days that continue. This repetition teaches the nervous system, we're okay. Now let's talk about grief for the survival self. Some people feel sadness when survival mode ends. That version of them was strong, resourceful, relentless. Letting go of that identity can feel like loss. But it's not erasure, it's evolution. Now, let's talk about the final stage of safety. Eventually, rest stops triggering alarms. The body doesn't scan for danger. The mind doesn't demand urgency. Calm becomes background, and from that background, new energy emerges. Not frantic energy, not fear-driven energy, but steady energy. Now let's close with the deepest truth of this video. Rest feels unsafe after long survival because your body learned that vigilance was protection. That lesson saved you once. Now it's time to learn a new one. That safety doesn't require constant effort. That stability doesn't need guarding. That rest is not the absence of responsibility. It's the foundation that makes responsibility sustainable. So if rest still feels wrong, don't rush to fix it. Don't label it. Don't escape it. Let it be unfamiliar, because unfamiliar doesn't mean dangerous. It means new. And new safety always feels strange before it feels like home. Over time, rest stops feeling like risk and starts feeling like what it truly is: permission to live without bracing for impact. And that permission changes everything.